I'm at the park, walking the track in my new neighborhood. I live in Brooklyn, New York now. I live in Brooklyn, New York now. It's been a little over 2 years. I think it was August 2nd, 2023. I posted something on Facebook, and recently Facebook reminded me of this post. And I was chilling in Jolene's living room. I posted a selfie of myself with a hat from one of the sponsors of the documentary showing of No Shame in This Game film, which I'm very, very privileged to have been a part of. And it showed up on my timeline of 2 years ago. And it made me very emotional because I was sitting and just reflecting on what it took to get here. I went through a lot for me to get here. And I've done a really good job of keeping it to myself. I've done a really good job of only communicating the positive and trying to do my best to, just not harm anybody, not make anybody look bad. So it's been a lot that I've held on to. And I went to a spiritual, it was the First Peoples of the Land in Montreal, Canada. Sedalia. Sedalia did a smudging on me, which is just like an energetic cleansing done with an eagle wing. And the smudging, when it started, she just hit me a couple of areas, and then she started to like cough a little bit when she got to my neck and chest area. Now, the reason this is so significant is because I've gotten some energetic healing work done before, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep on the table because I was lying down. And anytime I lie down, I'm going to sleep, right? I woke up. I was like, "Damn, what happened?" Because she was just sitting on her phone. She just let me sleep. She was like, "Yeah, your throat." When I got there, I just started kind of like hacking and coughing, like. And what this is it's representative of boundaries. It's representative of communication, not just what you're communicating, but also what's being communicated to you. And so I kind of had a little bit of a flashback when she started to cough, and she said, "You hold on tight. Whatever that is, you got to let that shit go." And this is at the end of July. I was in Canada for the HIV and STI World Congress, and I was holding on to some stuff. I was holding on to some stuff because I was actively, grieving. And regardless of how good I think my posture is, like I'm standing up tall, wide base, I'm smiling a little bit, she was still able to see through that shit. She saw clean through it. And I know that when I intended to go to Canada, like this was just kind of stuck in the back of my mind, but I was supposed to be there with the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And that was the story that I told myself. There was still an attachment to that. And I knew that I was going to have my feelings being there. I knew that I was going to struggle a little bit. And I did. On my way home that night, back to the Airbnb I was staying at, what came up was I walked past this little park, and in the park area, this guy was playing music, and he was playing music that sounded like he was grieving, man. Like I didn't hear the words necessarily, but I felt them. And then the next song that he played was the song Black by Pearl Jam. And I guess I like pushed this out of my head because this was one of my favorite songs just for how it felt. And some of the lyrics of it was, now my fuck all the love we had turned my world to black, tattooed on my skin, all that I am, all that I'll be. But then it got to a point where like the song hit its fucking peak when he said, what did he say, why why couldn't it be us? Fuck, I can't remember the words. It's killing me now. He said, Do 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 do. It's around the do 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 do. Hey, world gone black. Why couldn't it be? Oh, you'll be. I know you'll be a son in somebody else's sky, but why? Why couldn't it be? Why couldn't it be us? And I fucking felt that shit, boy. And that was just it's a process. It's a necessary process, man. That's what grieving is. Grieving is a necessary process, and I'm very fortunate to. Um, I'm at a place where like I'm good. I'm good. I can talk about the relationship now. I can talk about the breakup, that grieving process, and you know how I felt about the shit that she talked about me afterwards, and also I got my shit to say that you know is missing from the story, uh, and I got my feelings about it, but that's neither here nor there anymore. I think that I let it out in therapy when I got to say a lot of the stuff that I did hold on to because I don't want to I don't want to let what I share be guided by fear or what I'm not sharing to be guided by fear of any sort of like retaliation from her or like being turned into a fucking YouTube series, which like I have been essentially just the breakup diaries, whatever the fuck it's called. But at the end of the day, like I still love this girl and all of the ways that she's presented herself. And I came to terms with my narrative of what happened with the relationship because for so long I was navigating such a confusing time uh, after the breakup, like just trying to make sense of it. We did a podcast episode together talking about that we were breaking up and that this was like an amicable ending to the relationship only for me to like find out that that isn't the case. Like I felt like I was learning more stuff about the relationship than what was communicated to me in the relationship or the breakup. So I struggled with that. I struggled a lot with that. And in the passing of time and in the me starting to let go of her body. Let me say that. Like I had to let go of her body. I had to let go of her emotions, her energy, and there was still a lingering essence of not necessarily her, but the imprint, the mark that she made on me. And part of that was insecurities and identity for myself, right? I've always been the kind of person who wants to save people. I have an ex that I dated. She was a year older than me, and we went to prom together. And I remember uh, I was in college and we had reconnected, and she had gone through something. Her boyfriend had like been murdered, and shortly after, she and I had reconnected, and something in me was just like, you know, take things slow, keep a distance, right? And I was present with her, like, but at the end of it, she was like, we need to be in a relationship. And I was like, whoa, boundaries, right? I guess this was one of my first experiences with that. And she didn't like that I wouldn't just agree to be in a relationship with her. And what that ended up turning into was I got a very cryptic voice message from her after that conversation of me not being her boyfriend. And it didn't sound good to me. So I called like one of those suicide lifelines and I described where her address was. And they went out, they went to her place, they found her, and she was alive. And her brother had called me and he was like, thank you. We found her, she's safe. That was the end of it. And recently I saw her on LinkedIn, so I know she's good. I messaged her and just asked. I was like, "Hey, do you have herpes?" Because I was curious if if that was what led to her trying to kill herself. But no, it was trauma, and it had nothing to do with me. And I have created an identity around saving people. I've created an identity around being the hero, you know. And I'm not gonna always be the hero in other people's story. I might be a hero to some people, but it pains me to become a villain in other people's story when all I've been is nothing but myself. And I think that where I became the villain was trying to become who I needed to be or who I was asked to be through behavior changes that I believed were challenging me to be a better person. Because when two people get together, right, like you challenge each other to grow, you support one another, you celebrate one another, right? And that's what I felt like was happening. I was like, okay, well, Maybe I shouldn't have had sex with these particular people. Maybe I should have said this thing instead of that. Maybe I should be a little bit more this way. And I came to this conclusion of like the nervous system operating like the solar system. And when you look at the sun, what to us? We get light, we get heat, we get life, we get gravity, right? These are the things that we get from the solar system. And we have this whole ass planet that without the sun would just be a fucking block of lifelessness, right? The sun, if it were conscious, if the sun were like to want to observe and be like, oh, look at Courtney over there. Courtney's doing his thing. You know, he looks a little hot. Let me try and cool him off a little bit. Let's say the sun were to just back itself away from the exact point that I'm at right now, just a little bit to cool me off a little bit. Let's say it goes down 7 degrees. I'm like, ah, that's nice. Somewhere else, it's gonna get 7 degrees colder. Somewhere else, it might get 7 degrees hotter, right? But the sun has 8 other planets that are in orbit that rely on its being the center of gravity and the light source and the heat source. So it might get darker in a different way, like whole ecosystems and shit disrupt because of the sun's decision to accommodate for one person out of the probably infinite or uncountable number of things that are depending on the sun maintaining its gravity. Now, what the sun does, and I looked this up, I have done some extensive research because I think that this has been where my spirituality is now grounded, which is in like atoms, looking at the atomical structure of things: proton, neutron, electrons, right? And their relationships to each other, the shells at which electrons operate, the nucleus, and looking at the proton as purpose, the neutron as the neutral conscious force of awareness, and then the electrons being infinite potential, or negativity as we say, but it's really negative in the sense of being absent. Proton is presence, purpose. Neutron is choice, consciousness, and then electrons are what comes as infinite potential if you were to give it presence. All right. So the sun, its purpose is to turn hydrogen to helium. That is what the sun does. And how it does that is it uses the pressure, the heat, and the friction within that fucking cloud of gas. And that's all it does. The sun's purpose is to do that. And externally, we align ourselves, the planet aligned itself in the orbit of the sun that allowed for it to best benefit from the sun being the fucking sun. So when we think about purpose and we think about what we do in the world or who we are in the world, a lot of times it does come down to what we give to everybody else. But I think that the gift of our presence is not necessarily in what it is that we do, but who we are or what we are. The sun is a producer of helium, and in turn of it being, what it is, we get gravity. And this is what, like, our definition, right? We've aligned ourselves. The planet aligned itself, and everything that has been born of it, consciousness, human, whatever, is, if we were to mirror that, like I look at atoms on a micro level and then stars on a macro level of what the human experience is. So we're trillions and trillions of atoms that are now like the form of this body and the world around us and the pavement that we walk on and experience everything around us, right? Why wouldn't we operate the same way? So I've concluded that my purpose, where I gain my power from, is transmuting, at the base level, transmuting trauma into healing. So the worst thing that happened to you, to be able to produce healing from it, to be someone who's going through the process of healing, whatever that looks like for you. And I've been able to put into the external world, I've taken my stigma, my herpes stigma, and turn that and transmute that into healing. So I'm not turning hydrogen to helium, right? And I'm not in the fucking ball of gas where there's heat, pressure, and friction, but I'm in a world where emotionally there's heat, pressure, and friction. I am the emotional gravity of someone through my own nervous system, and people, places, things orient themselves, events, challenges orient themselves in response to the gravity of my own nervous system. And my gravity is rooted in the alignment of my behaviors and my beliefs. I believe myself to be someone who values challenge and liberation. I believe myself to be someone who is curious, creative, who empowers choice, someone who values connection, creativity. And these are things that make up my atomic structure. If I were to put these on the shells of what my atom is, like in my nucleus, it is the transmutation of stigma into healing. Herpes stigma specifically. And that's not a thing that I do necessarily, that's a way of being. And my beliefs about that are to challenge that and to liberate that, like people's beliefs about the two. And I went through the fucking ringer, man. For me to get out here to New York after making the decision 2 years and 2 weeks ago that this is where I was gonna be, like there was a pull here, there was a gravity here, or maybe like my gravity pulling me here. But looking at how the nervous system and solar system works, what took me so long to get here, like granted, I'm here right on time. What took me so long to get here is that I did what I mentioned earlier. If the sun saw Courtney and was like, man, let me cool my nigga Courtney off real quick, I'm gonna cool him off, I'm gonna back away, right? The sun, removes itself enough to cool Courtney off. But I'm like, yo, son, where you going? Like, my people dying, like the rest of the world, all these things are happening, ecosystems being destroyed, right? And the sun's like, oh shit, oh, my bad, my bad, my bad. Let me get back to where I was. I feel like nervous system wise, when I have not been engaged with transmuting herpes stigma into healing, what I did was I made an attempt to bring warmth to my relationship where she was cold. I made an attempt to be the gravity for one person when she was ungrounded in her identity and sense of self. I made it a point to shine light on one person in her moments of darkness. And I, with my nervous system, did the same shit that the sun is not supposed to do in the solar system. And I got away from turning hydrogen to helium, metaphorically turning herpes stigma into healing because she didn't like my work. I literally tried to create a whole ass other business working with men because the person that I was with didn't like that I worked with women or had any like the intimacy. And I don't mean just sexual, I just mean like even how I would be praised by women, people in general, but women were the issue for being a safe person or being a safe place for them to experience the effects of me transmuting stigma into healing. And I had to be real with my therapist and share some things that I won't, say here on the podcast necessarily, but I had to be real with him so that he can give me real reflections back. Real reflections that, like I said, like I tried to protect, but now, I think it's real that this shit ain't happening. Like we're not going to connect again. And that back and forth, that feedback that I got from my therapist was like, and I'm trying to, I still need to accept the fact that I played myself. I'm going to say I played myself. And this is because I did not have boundaries. I am very open about my life. I'm very open about who I am. I'm open about who I'm becoming. Like even here, like I was scared to do fucking self podcast episodes because I got like a little bit of fucking PTSD. I feel like people, and this isn't just my last relationship, have been very calculated in presenting themselves and using words and language in a way to present themselves as if like as if they actually like me. And who knows, maybe that was the case, but to say the things to get me to bring you into my bubble, I feel like that's what happened. I feel used. I feel taken advantage of. I feel like my vulnerability was weaponized and used against me. I feel as if, and I'm saying I feel because this is what I feel. And it may not be true, but there's space for it to be true and there's space for it not to be true. But just given the way that things happen, like I feel like she was very calculated in getting me. And over time, the very things that drew her to me, that made me think, okay, this is more important than what my purpose is. Maybe this is what my purpose is to be with this woman and bring a family into this world. Were the same things that drifted us apart, that became issues later on in the relationship. And I didn't change who I was, I changed behaviors, but who I was always an issue. And if I had boundaries, I believe me and her wouldn't have been together in the first place. If I was, firmly planted in being who I am, then it wouldn't have got to that point, because I began to try to find grounding and anchoring in her where I was already grounded and anchored in my purpose, where I've always already been anchored and grounded in turning hydrogen to helium as the sun does. But for me, herpes stigma into healing. Because that's what I was. I was living that shit. I was living it. And things were working out. Things were aligned. And as I look more at atoms and stars, and what happens is atoms begin to, draw together and they test for alignment. And they're just seeing verbally the words that I heard. There was so much alignment. I think back when one of the first things she said, I want to run a sexual wellness center. I was like, damn, I'd fucking do this sexual health stuff. Like, bet, let's fucking make this happen. And then it just bounced around to thing to thing. I'm a relationship coach. I want to get a certification. I want to make candles. I want to sell sex toys. I want to vlog. I want to do this. I want to soft life be a stay at home. I don't want to have to work, right? And I supported every one of those identities in the ways that I know how. And the whole time, me being who I was, when, again, just very calculated, she made herself visible to me. Like who I was never okay. And I had to come to terms with that in therapy. Like the people who have only heard her side of the story, who have had no desire to hear mine, who haven't reached out to me, like who treat me differently, clearly, because like there's a clear distinction of breakup happening, me being blocked. I hear the things that have been posted or said about me, about the relationship, and just the way that I've been painted. I've hated that. And I got to just share in therapy, man, like this is what happened, and then be able to say, all right, let me go ahead and break this down to you. The shit that I share online, I would never shit on this woman. And that's what unconditional love is to me. And that's also a choice. And at the end of it all, like I gotta accept the fact that there was nothing I could have done different. And I have accepted that. And I'm over it. I'm through it. I've moved forward. My life is fucking great now. And sometimes I cry about that because me and her, it was fun. Like there was so much fun. There was so much hope. There was so much potential. Like there was so much alignment between what she said and what I did. Like my actions were of a motherfucker that loves you, that cares, that doesn't want to see you struggle. And somehow, like, my actions were what led to the end of the relationship, when there's nothing that I did that was wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I was honest. And even my honesty was flipped around as being lies. Like, just because I don't do things the way that, you want them, or say things the way that you want them said, right? Like, if the reality is that she wasn't okay with me as I was and she was looking to change me, then be real about that. Be honest. But I won't ever get that. I won't get it. And that's what me and my therapist talked about. It's like, hey, you ain't gonna get that. Y'all both got what y'all wanted from one another. And that's what he was making an effort to communicate to me. And I can't stand my therapist, but he is really good at his job. He is really good at his job. And he been here 5 years to recognize some of the patterns, and I've been able to speak to those patterns of, yeah, like my insecurity of needing to be useful. And I think a lot of men experience that. Like, oh, we feel loved by being useful. And I got to make myself useful as fuck, to the point of, like, accountability from her would look like, hey, I didn't tell you to stop helping me. I didn't tell you to stop doing these things. I didn't leave. I wanted you to only want me, and I wanted to win. I wanted to compete, or I wanted to be treated this way. Like, a lot of motherfuckers, and day one, she said this day one, and this is where I fucked up at. I didn't listen to her. My therapist asked me, he was like, if she told you that, why would you still, like, what's wrong with you, to where a woman can tell you I'm crazy, I'm jealous, I have relationship anxiety, and the fourth thing was I'm curious about non-monogamy. And he stopped me at crazy. He was like, what's wrong with you, where you would continue a relationship with somebody who tells you that they are crazy? And I was like, well, shit, at least she was honest. Like, there's a lot of people out there who may be crazy, and I use air quotes when I say crazy, because I don't like that. Like, so we settled on, like, mentally not challenged, troubled, like troubled people. And at this point, like, who ain't got trauma in their life? So even if it was a trauma based thing, that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, you know what? Nope. You got too much going on. And even uh, I've talked to people about it too. They were like, oh, well, you probably shouldn't have been in a relationship with somebody who is a lesbian. It's like, these people don't understand. And I've done my best to explain to them, like, that's not how this works. And yeah, if you look at it from a religious perspective, I shouldn't have been messing with a married woman, separated or not. But also, like, my responsibility is, she told me what she wanted. She told me she wanted Future, but I gave her Drake. And that experience too repeated itself, because someone that I was involved with, what, 4 months after the breakup, said the same shit. Told me I'm crazy, I'm anxious, I make up stories, and I'm curious about non-monogamy. Same four fucking things, exact verbatim. And I was like, oh, this sounds familiar. Okay, bet. Let me not get into a relationship with this person. So we have our time together. We share the time. And then communication changes. Communication just kind of like fell off a little bit. And then like 6 weeks go by. It took 6 weeks after me saying, like, hey, the worst thing that can happen here is, like, I don't want to not be talked to, right? Like, don't just fucking ghost me. And I got the check-in about, I'm not ghosting, but I want to, like, regulate or some shit. And the text messages that I finally got, like, I was like, yo, all right, bet. Essentially, and she wanted Future, and I gave her Drake, even if for that short period of time. So I think that what I've learned is that I really just got to listen to people for what it is that they saying up front and not think, oh, cool, this is good. Like I know where to orient you, but allow other people to orient themselves appropriately. Like if the earth were to be like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna stay on this the third orbit away from the sun. I think this is a good place for me. All right, I like you, son. I like you. I like your warmth. I like your heat. I like your presence. I like how consistent you are. I like your gravity. And then the son was like, "Oh, you like me? Bet, come closer. Come closer if you like me so much." No, no, nigga, no. Ah, I'm burning. I'm on fire. Melting. Right? And then the son, by the time it realized, oh shit, I'm making things worse by trying to get closer to this person, it now it has to retrace those steps. And I think that the healing process is looking at and witnessing the damage done. If the sun were to grieve, it would need to grieve all of the lost ecosystems, the relationship that it tried to get closer to someone or save someone and realize it couldn't save them. And even over time, like the sun has outlived so many fucking life events, lifetimes. And it's a young sun. So it ain't no telling what this motherfucker gonna do over time, between just turning hydrogen to helium and having created all this life and AI about to fucking take over the world, and we don't know what AI is gonna have and be in charge of and be able to do with the sun. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I did. You know, I'm at the center of my own solar system via my nervous system. And the insecurities that came up out of that relationship for me to heal, for me to, you know, having had to backtrack my steps of getting so close to this person and just like allowing for the progress that I made, the people who've depended on me, the the heat, the light, the gravity that I've sustained for other people through me being Courtney, me being the transmuter of stigma into healing. I had to look at that shit. I had to look at the damage, and it's so hard to get back into rhythm, right? It's not just the sun turning hydrogen to helium, right? It stopped doing that, and it has to kind of come back and go, all right, how was I doing this? It's not necessarily like riding a bike, because even now, coming back to me running something positive for positive people, there's a whole new rhythm I gotta fucking get into because I'm not the same. I'm changed. I'm changed from that person I was when I was in flow. Like I've been doing this shit since 2017, and going through, you know, that second half of 2024, like recognizing, oh shit, okay, so these things that I do are a problem. Maybe I should do things different. And I tried to change. I was trying to, the equivalent of transmuting hydrogen into something else or transmuting something else into something else. And it might have been working for a little bit, but it wasn't working. Nothing that I would have done would have fixed this or changed any outcome of the relationship. And I think that that was what sent me into that stagnance, that sense of depression, right? And there was just a couple of things that grounded me, and I'm so grateful to the people in my life, the relationships that have reemerged as a result of me, like going through that, and me being able to just be witnessed in a space of I don't know. People pointed out to me, Courtney, that sounds like depression. I ain't never fucking experienced depression before, ever. And I think that now, having had that experience, I might be a lot better at being supportive to other people, at being someone who can witness others at the lowest of lows in their life and where they are and who they are, because I got to be witnessed. And I want to extend my gratitude. I ain't gonna say, you know, everybody's names, but there were people who were there for me, not just through the breakup, but also through me losing my home to a tornado, and the whole grieving process, the period of just confusion and everything. And you know, I finally just decided, let me go ahead and just tell my therapist, man, because I didn't even want to talk to him about the relationship no more. I was done. I was like, man, let's talk about boundaries. He was like, all right, how are you with your ex? And I just told him, I was like, I'm grounded in it. Like I had to face a hard reality that I was emotionally manipulated. For me to be somebody who considers myself emotionally available, emotionally intelligent, like I was emotionally just fucking drained and I was used again. The again is what's fucking me up because I recognize I got a pattern. I love me a broken person, even if masked under the guise of healing. And that's what made it feel healthy to me. It was the presentation of here's what I'm working on. I'm working on these things. I can own the fact that I'm this, and this. But my ego of being the hero, of saving people, fixing people, being liked by everybody, all that shit got challenged when this relationship ended. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad to have learned so much of what I learned after the relationship. In the relationship, I learned the importance of boundaries because the boundaries that I would have had would have protected me from her. The boundaries that I would have had would have kept us from getting too close. And I used to say, it's like, I'm not dating nobody in my career field. I'm not dating nobody in my career field. And then I date somebody in my career field, and look what happened. The very thing that I say, hey, this would be the worst thing that could happen for me. And then she go and do the shit, just shit on me. So being able to just do this and talk out loud and process my therapy sessions, like after the fact, of course, like safely and with, an anonymity, because a lot more people, a lot of people don't even know who my girlfriend was. And I think that in the breakup, like more people know that we broke up than who knew we were together. And that hurts me because this is like it's a different level of like, I ain't gonna say shame or being ashamed of me necessarily, but definitely like with her going through the divorce, like I was mindful of what kind of things I would post or how the frequency, but like she was on my page. I wasn't on hers. I was immersed in her family. She ain't me, none of my relatives, none of them. And to sit up here and just make me out to be like my character to be such a bad person, and for me to just like have to bite my tongue and just like take that shit, that was contributing to the stuckness until I was able to just start saying that shit, right? Like it's not coming from a place of reactivity. Like I remember seeing things that she would post or say and wanting to like retaliate or respond. I was like, nah, Courtney, do nothing. Do nothing. That voice, that same voice that told me, I felt like a battered woman one day before I went home to just visit because I just needed a fucking break. She left one day and I packed up. I filled my suitcases up with as much stuff as I wouldn't need, and I took it home. I dropped them off when I went to visit, and I came back with two empty suitcases just because I think intuitively I knew I needed to get the fuck out of there. I knew I needed to get out of there, and there was an inner voice that said to me, Courtney, you got to get the fuck out of here. And the next time I left, I had enough room in my suitcases. There were a few things that she needed to ship out to me, but I made it. I made it out of there. And I'm so glad I did because what, a month went by and something happened that if I were there would have involved me. Somehow it would have affected me. And that thing that happened, that was the last time we talked. You know, the last thing she said to me, and this used to fuck me up. And I told my therapist this: I love you, I miss you, and you're the only person who is always there for me. And her actions have not reflected that. And I think that hurt me. That hurt me because like when I had that tornado hit my crib, that's who I wanted to hear from. I just wanted to hear from her. I wanted to hear from this person that I called my motherfucking nigga. That was my nigga. But then reality hit. I started to talk about this. I started to actually share with my family, friends, and even my therapist what was really happening. Like the things that I won't, name and say, they were like, Courtney, that wasn't your nigga. That wasn't your nigga. This was a selfish person. This was not a good person. And this is just the reality that you gotta live with. But I didn't give a fuck because that's unconditional love. That's unconditional acceptance. I didn't love her only if she did this thing for me. I didn't love her only if she behaved in a certain way. I loved her for who she was, even if that shit changed on a weekly basis. I didn't care. And that's what love is, to me at least. And even to this day, right? Like, I still love her, but I recognize that I gotta love her the same way that the sun loves, from a place of presence, from a place of transmuting hydrogen into helium, and for me, transmuting herpes stigma into healing. So I can't. This was a resonance test. The way that atoms, their electrons collide as they try to form a molecule with one another, in the same way that that happens with stars and atoms, right? Nervous systems do that. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned here, is that my nervous system is, in fact, a constellation. It's got an orbit. And instead of me trying to force, my nervous system onto other people, like, let them orient themselves appropriately. Let people orient themselves to your solar system, your nervous system, and see what, just observe what happens, right? If people want to draw in closer, let them do it on their own accord. Let them do it at their own pace. Because real talk, like, I forced her in a lot faster than she wanted to be. I wanted to merge. I wanted to share. I wanted to not be alone. And that's another one of my insecurities, is just how lonely this shit is. When I heard that girl say, from her supporting my Patreon and the effort that she went into to getting me to notice her, and the effort it seemed like for her trying to get to know me, to telling me she wanted to run a sexual wellness center, and it's like, I got the resources. Let's fucking do this. But maybe it was just too fast. Maybe it wasn't real. Like, maybe that ain't really what she wanted. But the words were there, and my actions backed up, supported the words. And I still am a firm believer in choice, right? Like, I make a choice and I stick to it. And it's one of the things I talked about too in therapy, is not being safe to say I don't know. Saying I don't know is one of the most vulnerable things I believe that I can do, or that any person can do, because I'm so used to having to know it all. I'm used to having to, like, have the answer. And it's at the expense of sometimes, right? Like, I'll give an answer, but then I have to support the answer. I got to find a way to support that. That's tough. So being able to make a choice and then support it with the answer, not the answer necessarily, but with actions. Like, align whatever that choice was with an answers and answer. But I think that that's really just the core of this, being that our nervous system is, like, metaphorically the solar system, and that pathway of deviating, right? Like, you're cultivating and collecting trauma, like, in your network of what your nervous system covers, and your path back to center, or to a new center, is where that mental health challenge is. That's where the trauma occurred, and now, like, looking at it, you got to heal, or otherwise you deviate and you try and take on a new identity, you try and take on a new sense of purpose, you try and take on a new responsibility of expressing who you are. Like, if the sun were to try and be the moon, the sun can't be the fucking moon. But if it tried, it would create a lot of devastation and chaos that it would then need to observe and heal from. Or it can avoid and create a whole new path of destruction by trying to become Jupiter, trying to become Pluto, right? But ultimately, that path back to center, that path back to a regulated nervous system, that's healing. And in that healing, there's grief, there's sadness, there's anger, there's rage, there's actions, there's coping mechanisms, there's all this shit. There's all shit in that process. But I'm on the other side of that. And I told my therapist, I said it to him. I was like, I feel like I have let go. I've let go of the relationship. I've moved on from the relationship. And I know that letting go ain't just like a thing that has an expiration date. Like, I'm going to still have things come up. I'm going to still, think about her sometimes. I'm going to still, when a certain song comes on, like that uh, Wale song, when that come on, I'm going to still think about her, you know? I got a text from the guy who we went to his wedding in Hawaii. He texted me, "Hey man, just thinking about you. We on our way to Hawaii right now. Wanted to see how you doing." I had to tell him, like, "Hey, it's what's been going on." I ain't going into all the detail, but just let him know I live in Brooklyn now, and it was so nice to be able to say that I live in motherfucking Brooklyn. After saying I want to be in a place, I'm here. I'm in this bitch, and I'm happy. My friend Will asked me, he says, "Your life, are you happier without her, or is your life better without her than it was with her?" And I don't like answering that question because the truth hurts. And the answer is yes. But fuck, man, why couldn't it be like this with her in it? Like, the promises made of what she would give me if only I were different. That is the hardest thing to accept. Courtney, I would give you everything you want if you were different. And I spent that relationship, even the breakup, like trying to figure out where I went wrong, only to learn it ain't nothing wrong with me. Ain't nothing wrong with me. And I spent this year, 2025, this whole fucking year, trying to figure out what was wrong with me because I was with somebody who refused to take any accountability or figure out what could be wrong with her or what could be wrong with the relationship. She was reading a book called You Can't You Change Him. What was it? Some shit about like changing him. And even then, like I didn't vocalize, I didn't say, I didn't name, yo, this shit makes me feel terrible. Like, it makes me feel like I'm not good enough as I am. Like, you want me to be somebody else. And I didn't walk away. So me staying longer, trying to fix it is the equivalent of the sun being here like, "Oh shit, Courtney, you too cold. Here, I'll come closer. Oh, now you too high. Oh, let me go back a little bit. Let me rotate this way. Let me do that." And all the things that the sun did, the sun is still the sun. The sun is still the sun. All right. Somebody was walking by walking dogs. I didn't want to look like I was talking to myself. So, yeah, man, the sun would still be the sun no matter where you try and orient it. So it's important that, yeah, we allow people to orient themselves to us appropriately. And with time, maybe there's a mutual agreement of you as you are, me as I am, we come in closer. But that's got to be a mutual aligned agreement. And only time and consistency will test that for you. I didn't give that relationship enough time. I thought that I did because, okay, long distance, we communicating, we doing things, I'm making changes. But that was me. I made changes. I don't know what changes she had to make. There was nothing different that I asked of her. There was nothing that she needed to fix or change because she was perfect to me as she was. And even to this day, like, I look back, I wouldn't change anything about her. I just recognize, like, I gotta have boundaries because I am too open. I'm not too open. Fuck that. Like, that's part of me transmuting stigma into healing, and it goes beyond that too, into a space of transmuting my trauma into healing. And part of that is having this experience with depression, having this experience with a breakup, having this experience of grief and loss and losing my apartment and moving again and failing and succeeding, right? So all that to say, man, I'm happy now. Yesterday I had a great morning consistently. I think it's been a consistent month and a half of me being okay. So I feel like I can talk now. I feel like I can get back into rhythm of, fuck journaling. I want to do this. I want to just talk it out because this is my safe space. This is my emotional safe space for me to be able to transmute my trauma into healing. And if people orient themselves appropriately, that in a way that works for them, maybe they'll be able to get some sunlight. Maybe they'll get some heat. Maybe they'll get a sense of grounding and gravity from what I'm pumping out, like how the sun produces helium from hydrogen. Just be in the sun, right? So that's where I'm at. Life is good. I'm healthy. I'm working again. Why you stop right here? Oh, okay. I'm about to cross the street. This lady stopped right in front of me. People ain't got no awareness. So, yeah, I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm accumulating. Ooh, the big thing that I want to note. I did the math on the amount of money that it took for me to move to New Jersey instead of New York and what was spent over that time, and me losing my apartment balanced that shit out. Like when we talk about the laws of compensation or whatever the fuck we want to say, like I got the money back. And with that, I was able to move. I was able to move to New York, settle in, and have a little bit left over, rent paid in advance. And I'm now able to, oh, okay. And now I'm able to, like have a little bit of a cushion and go to work. And I just fucking put a hole in my shoe. Ain't that a bitch? That's what I get for talking shit. But yeah, this is just my I me statements, man. This is how I feel. And it all came back around, and I'm on the up and up. And I'm just so happy. I'm glad to have really been able to lean into my support system and live in a way that it ain't nothing wrong with me. And I let somebody like do a damn good job convincing me that there was something wrong with me. And my healing process of getting back to center looked like looking at me and recognizing, okay, ain't nothing wrong with me. Here are some things that I do have and need to work on. The insecurities of needing to be liked, wanting to fix people, and just letting myself be used and not having boundaries. So these are the things that I'm actively working on now. Did all that didn't even go nowhere. That was a car that, ooh, people driving crazy today. But all right, I gotta go do my laundry. Thank you for listening to this episode of Self, which is essentially me processing my therapy sessions. And yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. Me processing my therapy sessions, and it's just my decompression chamber. So hopefully, you're able to get something out of this, and maybe the solar system, nervous system analogy works for you. And if not, then I mean that's cool. But yeah, I look forward to being in this new rhythm for myself. All right, till next time, I want y'all to stay present.